I'll call to order the Finance Committee meeting for Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Swanson? Mr. Swanson? Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Present.
Ms. Weber?
Present.
Mr. Payton?
Present.
Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Present.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Featherling?
Present.
Mr. Dunnell?
Present.
Mr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Seroy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
I believe the
Hey,
Zoom.
sorry, Kelly Swanson is here. I couldn't get my mute turned off.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have no request for public comment. There are no presentations. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for this, and I should have mentioned it before we started the meeting. Is it okay if I read the announcement from the Government Finance Officers Association, the letter I received about our audit and the award that we received?
Certainly.
Is it appropriate at this time?
That should be part of our, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. I just want to let this committee know, that were part of executive committee yesterday heard it, but this is not a little deal, it's a big deal. I believe for the 4th or 5th year in a row, the county has been awarded a Certificate of Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting as a result of the CAFR, which is the basically the addendum summary and the detail that comments on our outside audit every year. We were awarded this. It's the highest form of recognition. I'm reading straight from the letter in government accounting and financial reporting. So it's basically reporting on the finances and the accounting that has gone on within the county. It's not the actual accounting itself. So I just wanted to mention that when the Certificate of Achievement is awarded to a government, an award of financial reporting is also presented to the individual departments designated by the government as primarily responsible, and that would be Steve McCarty and his staff, true professionals, very versed in the acumen that they apply to their business every single day, and I can tell you that I, for one, am glad they're here and appreciate the work they do.
I think we should all applaud that award because it does well for it. All right, let's move to the approval of the minutes. December 21, is there a motion? Mr. Hess moves, Mr. Long seconds to approve. Roll call vote for approval of the minutes.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton? Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We move to the Finance Department. Mr. McCarty, miscellaneous financial reports and discussion.
Morning, everyone. Update with normal sales tax and income tax, use tax, those normal flows, and trend-wise, you know, I believe stability and some positive trend is still positive at this point. I can't say it enough. You know, if you look at other years on the sales tax, you'll see a lot of variance throughout the year, and the last, 6-7 months have all been in the same window of total. So I think that's positive, at least, you know, with what we've been going through. Use tax continues to well exceed what we did a year ago in the various months and in total. And income tax is also running higher. So that just a brief overview on some of the activity there. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I won't spend a lot of time now, so if there's any questions on it.
Any questions on these?
You can only have one or the other.
If there are no questions, we can move on to the cash flow update, please.
On the cash flow update, we're through December into January now. The January numbers are running pretty close to what is estimated on the sheet. And then the bolded numbers for May of 21 and June of 21, those 2 months will be our lowest cash flow months of the year. And not looking too bad at this point. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to do you know, once again, get through this year without a tax anticipation warrant. So the trend is still at least stable to positive, if we will, for our cash flow. And we will have, we're working on the year end of FY20, not only for the general fund, but all the funds. And I will update the committee next month on what those numbers are, and we'll discuss, you know, FY20 and we'll continue as we continue to look at FY21 right now. So I don't have a lot of other things to add, other than it is positive where those the estimates are and the trend is right now. So if we can, everything holds true, I believe we'll get through without a TAW, as I said. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. I won't spend a lot of time on it unless there's a specific question from the committee.
I see no indication of questions, so we would move on to, we have one claim not recommended for approval. Is there a motion in regard to
So
that?
moved.
Second, Parker.
I did. Who?
Gunnell.
Denno and Parker, all right. We have a motion to approve that claim. Is there any comment? Mr. Hunter?
Mr. Chairman, what is this about?
This is
Where's the copy of, I can't really,
contract
Contract
for
for review.
review. Mr. Wheeler?
This is a claim that isn't for county business even. This is a workforce board claim where the auditor is demanding to see the contract between the workforce board and whoever this entity is, Tech Services. So ridiculous is about the best thing I can think of.
this is not a new payment in terms of, this is not the initial payment, is it? There's been ongoing payments for similar activities such as this?
Steve might be able to speak to it, but we are the fiscal agent for the workforce board, so they approve their claims, they send them over here.
It's a pass-through in a way.
Yeah, it's a pass-through. We
It's a
don't, it's not
pass-through.
even our money or taxpayer money from here. It's workforce board money that we act as their check and balance to have that separation and be their fiscal agent, if you will. We're contracted for 3 counties to do that out of here, and the auditor's always been demanding information from us that is residing with them. So if he wants this information, he should FOIA them and stop slowing up our processes with ridiculousness, frankly.
Any other comments? Questions? If not, we'll need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton? Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
We move to the monthly claims report. The claims are in your packet. Are there any questions on the claims? Well, let's have a motion, and then if there's any discussion. Can we have a motion to approve? Mr. Long? And Mr. Payton seconds.
Peyton.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve. Any questions on the monthly claims? Apparently they've all been reviewed and there are no questions from committee members, so we'll move on to a roll call vote.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker? Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
We move to property tax abatement for the tax year 2020. Mr. McCarty, would you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, this is an annual item for debt service. The Series 2007 bond was related for the county health department. So this is an activity that happens once a year in this time of year. So I'll answer any questions if there are any. It's kind of housekeeping, annual housekeeping item.
Mr. Hunter?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. A second.
Polk.
Polk. Any further
Second.
questions on this one? If there are no questions, a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
If we have nothing else for the finance department, we'll move on to the treasurer's office. Mr. Africano, we have the reports from the treasurer's office. Is there a motion to combine and approve? Mr. Hess, is there a second?
Miller.
Miller? Let's see if there's any discussion, anything you want to say before the reports.
No.
All right, any questions from the committee? Hearing none, we move to a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess? Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
What can you tell us about your department?
Good morning, everybody. I guess to take this opportunity first to congratulate Steve on his award. That's awesome. Steve is incredible to work with, and his department's incredible. I just have two quick things. One, we are taking taxes early, like we started last year. So I would ask that if you can publicize it in your districts, that's great. You can come in, you can do it online, you can do it, you can mail it. There are a lot of ways, and you can pay any payment you want. You can set it up as a recurring, same amount. You can come in and pay whenever you want, a little here, a little there. So it's totally flexible. I'm hoping that we get some news coverage on this to get it out there in the public. Secondly, tentatively, tax bills will be in the mail on May 7th, and with a due date of June 10th. Those are tentative dates. They could slide further into May, but that's what we're shooting for right now. We'd like to do that because it's always positive to get the county an early distribution if we can. I know Steve likes that, and everyone else. That's really all I have. Everybody in the office is healthy, and we're getting ready for tax season to start. Hard to believe already. Questions?
Mr. Hunter?
Not really a question, Mr. Africano. How many employees do you have there?
I have 3 full-time employees,
Okay, and most of which are females, right?
all female,
All
besides
female.
myself.
Let me just say this, as the chairman of the trustee board of the oldest African-American church in the county, let me just say this, I don't throw out kudos unless they're justified, but just want to thank you on behalf of the trustee board, for your interfacing with us regarding some matters of utmost concern at our church. I think you've developed a new friend, Ernest Frazier.
Yeah.
Ernest
Ernest is a
Frazier.
good man.
And I just want to thank you on behalf of our church.
Glad to help.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
We'll move to the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Downey. You have the monthly update in your packet.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Really, just I have a few things to talk about. Some involve money, but I'm not asking for any. So put your mind at ease early. I just want to let you know our out-of-county count. Our U.S. Marshal count is 225, and our ICE count is 27. I know there is some concern regarding what's going on based on some executive orders signed by the president.
I didn't hear that one though, Sheriff.
But in my conversations with representatives in the Chicago office, ICE will still be here in one form or another. Whether those numbers increase or not, we don't know. But we will still. All indications we have is that nothing is changing at this point. Some of you may have been privy to this memo that came out from the acting director of ICE and talked about some of the things that were included in the executive order. And according to the representatives I talked to at ICE, they are basically right now in a holding pattern. So, that's about as much as I can give you right now because it's what we know. So, COVID, we all know by now that we had some COVID issues, and I can tell you right now we still have 14 who are going through the process. They are still positive. However, everybody else that had COVID at one time is recovered. We had no what I would consider serious issues. Most are runny nose, cough, maybe a fever here or there, but staffing wise, at one time or another, I believe I had 25 or so correctional officers who have tested positive at one time or another. We're getting through them as well. I don't know, and we may still have a few that are off right now, but so it's affected our staff as well. But we've made it through. I think the director of the health department passed on yesterday that we are now vaccinating those in 1B, which includes public safety, teachers, and it also includes inmates. We have actually polled or surveyed our current inmates that we have, and while I think the number is a little bit low, we did have about, the exact number escapes me, it was right around 150 of the 510 or so that we have in custody. We had about 150 who want the vaccine. So we are just waiting on the health department to give us the date that they are going to bring the vaccine into us, and we will get those vaccines administered to the inmates who request it. I know that
Mr.
there's...
Hess.
Nope, go ahead.
What happens if one of the inmates gets vaccinated and is discharged?
Well,
Who's
and that's,
responsible in that?
well, that responsibility technically is on them. However, there will be somebody to contact them. And I can tell you for myself, I actually got the vaccine and I got a phone call Friday before the Monday that says I need to come in on Monday to get my second dose. And so they will get noted, they will get contacted. Whether they follow through with it or not, I guess we don't have much control over. So
So it's a wasted vaccine.
we do, obviously we do consider, you know, any medical treatment that we give to those who are in our custody a public health issue. So I think it's important that, you know, and we are going to provide some more education to those who decline the vaccine. Some of the responses we got to the survey that they wrote on paper were somewhat humorous, involving zombies and all kinds of things that I don't know, maybe they watch too much news, I don't know, but they were, yeah. So anyway, so we did offer it. It's all we can do. We certainly can't mandate it, but we'll see where that goes, and I'll have a more specific number probably, I would imagine, for the criminal justice meeting next month. Lastly, the reason I want to bring this up is because it does have some financial possibilities for us, and that is House Bill 3653, which obviously recently passed both the House and Senate, is awaiting the governor's signature. We don't know if he's going to sign it or not. All indications from things that he has said, things that are going around, is that he will sign it. And I just want to bring a couple things to you guys that will affect us. Obviously, first and foremost is body cameras. While I don't believe too many people are opposed to body cameras, I'm not. But as we've talked before, the ongoing cost of the body cameras, not so much the cameras as much as the storage and the personnel that it's going to take. And I'll use this example because we see this a lot, especially with FOIAs. An inmate who's in our custody FOIAs his body cam footage from his arrest. Well, inmates in custody like to talk a lot with each other. And all it takes is one inmate to say to another one, hey, I FOIA'd my body cam footage and they sent it to me. And then this guy does it, then this guy does it, then this guy does it. And the problem with that is we have to redact certain things that are in that footage. So that's going to take personnel, it's going to take time, and so those are additional costs that really nobody factors into it. We're not, you know, in fact, we've gotten some cost for body cameras, and I will bring to you guys that cost next month because we want to confirm it and lock it in so that maybe we can start moving forward with this. Couple things, you know, obviously body cameras are not foolproof. They don't get every angle of anything that happened. We actually have body cameras already in the jail. So we have our rovers wear those body cameras. So if there's an incident inside the jail and our rover shows up to it, it's on our body cam in the jail. And it works out really well. Couple problems with the way this legislation is written. Officer makes an arrest. He cannot go back and review that body camera footage when he fills out his report. And on top of that, if anything in that report is wrong, the officer then can be charged with a Class 3 felony. It just baffles me why we wouldn't be allowed to review that so we get everything right. Obviously, the offender can review it when he FOIAs it, But we can't review it when we write out a report, and if that report is wrong, our police officer gets charged with a Class 3 felony. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Secondly, complaints against officers. As it is now, an individual has a complaint against a police officer. He comes in, he or she is required to sign a sworn affidavit saying that basically what he is telling us is the truth. And if it's found not to be true, then that individual can be charged with filing a false police report, perjury, whatever. I have not seen that happen here. I don't know if it's happened anywhere else, but I've not seen that happen here. Now, the argument is, well, people are afraid to do it because they don't want to be charged with filing a false police report. Well, if it's accurate, there's not going to be a charge. In addition to that complaint, there's no requirement for a sworn affidavit, and that complaint, whether founded, unfounded, unverified, or a flat-out lie, stays in that officer's personnel file forever. Forever. I mean, hey, under Illinois law right now, we can't use somebody's criminal record after 10 years. But this complaint, unfounded, made up, BS, stays in that officer's personnel file forever.
Mr. Hunter.
I know, let me ask you this, Sheriff. Couple questions. You indicated that the old Bill 163, which is reflected in 3653.
3653, yes.
Okay.
That's all the same.
Right. I understand. Now, the governor has the authority and the right to amend the bill, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of what do you call it, a mandatory
Absolutely.
veto or whatever.
Yep.
Now, you as one of the high-ranking activists with the Illinois Sheriff's Association, I'm sure that you have had conversations with our representatives, Representative Haas, Senator Joyce, and I'm sure a lot of us who have a relationship with the senator, I'm not speaking for him, just quoting him, and I'm not speaking out of turn. He had some concerns regarding that legislation.
No doubt.
Which he shared with you.
Yeah, right.
He shared with Senator Sims as well too. And I understand what transpired. You know, he heard you, but the next day it was printed. I know the story. Now there's an implementation date, effective date of 23, or what?
Well,
For some items.
for some. For the body cameras, I think for us, it's 2023.
And additionally, I don't know if the $1.9 trillion that may be modified somewhat from Biden will maybe be able to help us in terms of, you know, this legislation has like unfunded mandates in terms of this stuff. There's no money tied to what the requirements are, but that may be some help there. It'll help out red and blue states, not just Democratic states. And, you know, I'm going to tie this with what happened on June 2nd, and I'm being redundant, but, you know, from what I can gather, Theodis Pace is our local NAACP chapter president, and I've heard from him at statewide chapter meetings that we're the model. Kankakee County is the model for interfacing or pulling together community and law enforcement. And you guys may recall June 2nd, I think Madam Recorder was involved. I was involved. State's Attorney Rowe was a featured speaker. We had in excess of 700 people at that particular venue, due in large part to our sheriff. Additionally, you know, we at this particular venue, you know, passed a resolution speaking to full funding of law enforcement, equity, civil rights, et cetera. And I'd just like to say thank you very much too for you sticking with the spirit of that legislation, which was brought forth by Chairman Wheeler. You know, you walk the walk and you talk the talk in terms of equity, diversity. And I know you don't want me to say this, but I think you have to give credit where credit's due in terms of enhancing the workforce. Recently, I think you got your first Hispanic deputy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
no, we've got a couple.
Okay, well, anyway, new hire, which speaks to equity, as well as an African-American male, which was hired as well, too. So that's something to be happy about and appreciative, you know, as a taxpayer and a legislator here, we appreciate that. So I just want to say thank you very much for that. Oftentimes people have always articulate what's wrong, but sometimes we need to give credit where credit's due when you do the right thing. So I just want to say that.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Donner. Do you have?
Yeah, I got a couple more. So another part out of this bill is, of course, you know, one of the things with the bill, and you can agree with it or disagree with it, but is trying to limit putting people in jail and utilizing electronic monitoring more. Is that a good thing, bad thing? It's a good thing if it's operated correctly. It's a bad thing if it doesn't. And part of this legislation, if an individual cuts off his bracelet, he can't be charged with escape until after 48 hours. I'm not sure what the mindset is as to why, but literally cannot be charged with escape even though he just damaged a fairly expensive electronic monitoring device. And lastly, and this is probably, most people would look at this as insignificant, but knowing that locally, how we do things locally as far as interagency agreements with trespassing. I know the city has a lot of interagency agreements where if somebody's trespassing on their property, they call the police. Police come and arrest that individual, bring them to jail. Well, that's a Class B misdemeanor. And in this legislation, all Class B and all Class C misdemeanors are no longer jailable. They are citation only. So, and I'll give you an example that, you know, obviously we look at worst case scenarios because it's based on our experience and what we've done over the course of time. An individual comes on your property. Let's say it's a business, let's say it's your personal property, and you don't want him or her there, and you call the police. The police would come. If you wouldn't leave the property when the police were there, they would arrest you. That's current. Now, under this legislation, you decide not to leave, all they can do now is write you a citation. So, police leave after issuing the citation. However, the person who's trespassing on your property decides not to leave. What happens? Police come back. What are we going to give them, another citation? You know, our hands are going to be tied for your personal property and a trespasser on your personal property, whatever that may be, business, farm, whatever. And ultimately, and I say ultimately because the worst case scenario is going to be, what that's going to do is initiate either additional contact between offender and police, or contact between property owner and the offender, and God forbid somebody gets hurt worse than they should if they would have just been taken to jail and, you know, they would have posted $75. If they're not, if we're concerned about people being unable to post bond, then what do we think is going to happen with somebody paying a citation? If they're not going to post bond, they're not going to pay a citation either. So we seem to be wasting everybody's time. And I would encourage anybody who would like to take a look at our in custody list and see what our bonds are and what their charges are and what their criminal backgrounds are. and have somebody tell me, anybody on that list of the 250 or so local inmates that we have, who should be in jail and who should be released. Because I can tell you that between the state's attorney's office and ourselves, we work with them weekly to get the people out of jail who shouldn't be there. Because that's what it's about. We don't want to fill our jail with people. People who belong in jail should be in jail. People who don't belong in jail shouldn't be in jail. We get it. But you can go down our list, look at the bonds, look at their charges, look at their criminal backgrounds, and if you can tell me we're keeping somebody because of some bond that they can't make, then I would be shocked. But that's just me. So the last thing, you got a question?
Go ahead. Sheriff, I'd like to make a couple comments to your remarks. As senior member of this board, I'm looking forward to what Chairman Wheeler had said what the executive committee is going to be doing. I think we have a major priority to try to lobby the legislature. Unfortunately, because of time, I don't know that we've got enough time to have any impact on a mandatory veto by the governor, although I'd certainly love to see the governor do some mandatory vetoes. But I would hope that this county board would take a position that would call for lobbying major amendments to this bill, and I want to work closely with the chairman and the other members of the board to see that whatever political influence we can join with your Sheriff's Association and others who are interested, that we can move forward in getting some corrections in this bill. Clearly it was thrown together too quickly. It's a kind of everything but the kitchen sink thrown in, and well, I have heard some people say that there's some good parts in it.
Yes, no question. Yeah, no question.
It sounds like there's huge numbers that need to be taken care of. Hopefully the implementation deadline means that as a government body that doesn't always move as quickly as would seem necessary, we can move quickly on this one.
Somebody have something?
Yeah, I think the chairman wanted to speak.
Well, yeah, it was. I appreciate those comments, Mr. Chairman. The baby doesn't need to go out with the bathwater. There needs to be a focused set of recommendations on what needs to happen with this bill. As far as we're concerned, from a county fiscal management standpoint, there's law enforcement things that the sheriff, frankly, the NAACP and all the chiefs that have been meeting could go through and say, we're doing this already, it's working here. Okay, so that doesn't need to be in there. We need to have cameras, we need to have this, we need to have that. There is good stuff there, okay? And then so what I think we could do is, if we can do it before the next full board meeting, is somehow get recommendations from that group, which has already demonstrated that it's working to achieve the things that this bill wants to achieve. It's ahead of it, if you will. Then we might be able to give something to the governor and our lobbyists and our representatives that's a roadmap to a mandatory veto. And I know that probably your association has done the same, you know, and it's just, it's difficult for me because I have comments as the sheriff's talking. I try to stay in my lane and stay out of the law enforcement lane and stay in the lane of what this does to the fiscal management of the county and what it's going to do to the courthouse and all these programs we have to do just what this bill is supposed to address. And it's working. So when you say like escape after 48 hours, is that one of those offenses that they catch them and they just put another ankle bracelet on them that they're going to cut off again?
More than
because
likely.
It's not one of those fines that will keep you in jail, more than likely. You know, the citation thing, people who get citations for not leaving a property or whatever else, they can plead to the court that they don't have the money and they don't have to pay it. So again, that cost is all put up there. Then they go back to that person's house, get another citation, go back to court if they show up. It's this cycle of cost with no revenue on the other side of it. And no one's picking up that. The other thing was, you know, this bond situation. I bet if you did that list that you're talking about and you put a list in there and how much is in their commissary account, I bet you would see that people that say they can't get bonded out because they don't have the money to get bonded out have a lot of money in their commissary. So someone's giving them money, and they can get it.
We've already done that.
Yeah. So okay. Well, we've
already done that.
We have an idea. then,
Yes.
you know, so it falls on deaf ears when that argument is made. Nobody should sit in jail for shoplifting for a week. Nobody should sit in jail because you got a DUI for 3 weeks because you can't get bailed out. Unless it was probably vehicular manslaughter, DUI, aggravated, whatever.
Right.
The other thing that bothers me is that there was no input from law enforcement in any of this, or the people that are gonna have to pay for it, us. It was all done within the pre-dawn hours, and the pre-work was all done without the subject matter experts. That bothers me. So anyway, I'm done.
So lastly, I would encourage county board members, I would encourage members of the public to write a letter to the governor. Our Sheriff's Association actually did send us out, and I truly hate form letters, but they kind of sent us out a form letter. And quite frankly, I'm sure if the governor got 102 form letters from different sheriffs across the state, I'm sure he'd probably laugh at them after a while. So I put my own spin on it. And one of the things that I did suggest to the governor, and I use the analogy of what he's done with COVID. And whether you like what he's done with COVID or don't like what he's done with COVID, the fact of the matter is, at every press conference he had, he utilized scientists, doctors, and epidemiologists. So he utilized experts in the field to make decisions, whether we agree with them or disagree with them. He at least took that information that he got from those experts and made his decisions. Well, just what the chairman said, he took there was no input from what I would consider the experts in our criminal justice system, whether that's state's attorneys, sheriffs, chiefs, whatever. So that was kind of the spin I put on my letter, and I hope that he does at least amend some of these things. I don't know that he'll amend everything that we want out, but you know, all we can do is try, and that's why I sent my letter, because all we can do is try. And if he reads it, he reads it, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. That's it.
Are there questions from the committee? All right, I think we've covered this.
All right.
We'll move on.
Thank you.
Do you need to wait up for the lieutenant's contract?
I'll wait. Oh, up here?
Yeah, I don't know whether you need to.
Are we going to do that now, or?
Yeah, we're going to do it now.
Oh, okay.
All right, in your packet, we have the FOP contract for the lieutenant's, Fraternal Order of Police Lieutenant's contract renewal. This is a 3-year term, you see. You see the salary proposals. There are no changes in the language, terms, conditions of employment, or any compensation other than salary. I see some people looking for that. If they found it, okay.
Back page.
All right, people have found that. Let's have a motion to approve this, and then we're going to have discussion. Mr. Hunter moves to approve the contract. Is there a second?
Swanson.
Swanson. Okay. We have a motion. Discussion. What discussion do we have? Any discussion? Mr. Wheeler.
Just as a comment, it seems like our negotiating team and the union have come to this agreement. It has been, I would say, ratified by both, if you will. Everybody's agreed to bring it forward to the board. This is the output of that work.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
All right, we move on to the auditor's office. We have nothing from the auditor's office at this time. Other business, Mr. Andrews, we have a contract issue we need to deal with in terms of the elevator maintenance. So we need a motion to open sealed bids. Mr. Hess, Mr. Long, any discussion? No discussion on the motion. A roll call vote to open the sealed bids.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger? Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Could you give us background on this first, please?
Sure. This is work related to the elevator repairs that are required as a result of storm damage from last year. We've discussed it at length in the Highway and Building Committee. This is specifically work by others that has to happen in conjunction with the work that will happen with Kone Elevator. They were the low bid that we opened earlier this month. So this is work by others that needs to happen for a variety of reasons, code upgrades probably being the biggest as it relates to the elevator work that we hopefully will get going on here soon. Any questions? All right, there's no questions. Looks like we have...
Mr. Wheeler.
By the way, covered under the insurance loss. This is part of the insurance claim, so we've already been in contact. It's not new money to general fund. Just want to make sure.
Good point.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Featherling.
Wes, when's your target date to try to get this started?
Unfortunately, my hands are tied. The Kone is telling me it could be, a few months before they're ready to get started due to lead time on materials, COVID issues with suppliers, et cetera. So I'm being told now it could be we could still be a few months out.
Okay, the condition of the existing elevator is operative and you consider it to be excellent then?
Yeah, it was just inspected a couple months ago.
Okay.
So,
thank you, sir.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so we've got 4 bids here. I'll open the first. All right, the first bid is from Michuda Construction, Michuda. And it looks like their bid is in the amount of $62,557. $62,557 for Michuda Construction. Okay, the next bid is from Kevin Nugent Construction. All right, Kevin Nugent Construction, $31,400. $31,400 for Kevin Nugent Construction. Okay, the next bid is from PSI. Their bid is, let's see, $27,958. PSI $27,958. Let's see, and then the last bid I have here is from Johnson Downs. Their bid is $49,422. $49,422. So as is typical, I'd like to review these for accuracy, and with the committee's permission, go ahead and enter into an agreement with the lowest bidder.
Mr. Hess?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll make a motion like I did before to, after review, take the lowest, most responsible bid.
Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Featherland seconds that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Wheeler?
Since this is the first time since we've met, since Mr. Hess made that responsible bidder comment, that is defined within the county code. If anybody wants to know what that means in the language on how to qualify a responsible bid, it's in the code. So it's not nebulous on whatever we think at the moment, or Wes thinks at the moment.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Polk?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Dunnell?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long? Mr. Hunter? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Now, that does mean that at the current time, the lowest bid is the PSI.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Mr. Hess,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
I second.
Mr. Long? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.